I'm standing in my kitchen right now, 6 months after everything changed, and I can hear my daughters laughing in the living room. They're watching cartoons and arguing over who gets the last strawberry popsicle. It's the most beautiful sound in the world. But 6 months ago, I stood in this exact same spot, on this exact same kitchen floor, and I couldn't hear anything except the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Let me back up. My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old, a nurse in the ER, and a mom to two incredible little girls, Emma, who's 8, and Lily, who's 6. For 12 years, I thought I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. The kind where you survive the hard seasons and come out stronger, or so I believed. 3 months ago, we moved into a new apartment. It was supposed to be our fresh start. Tom had gotten a promotion that required relocating, and we needed more space for the girls anyway. The apartment was perfect, affordable, bright, in a good school district. The previous owner, an elderly woman named Margaret, had moved to assisted living and left quickly. She seemed a little scattered during the walkthrough, kept apologizing about forgetting things she'd left behind. I remember thinking how sweet she was, how sad it must be to leave a home so fast. I had no idea that Margaret was about to save my life. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something for me. Take a deep breath with me. Really. In through your nose, out through your mouth, because what I'm about to share is going to sound unbelievable, and I need you to know that every word is true. Please, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. It brings me so much comfort to know that women all over the world are listening, and that I'm not alone in this. And if stories like this speak to you, if you've ever felt that gut feeling that something was wrong but you couldn't prove it, please subscribe to Jessica Stories Vault. You don't have to walk this road alone. None of us do. Okay, here's what happened. It was a Tuesday morning in late September. I'd just finished a brutal overnight shift at the hospital, 12 hours of back-to-back traumas, codes, a teenager who didn't make it. I was exhausted in that bone-deep way where even your hair hurts. Tom had already taken the girls to school. The apartment was quiet. I changed out of my scrubs, made coffee, and went to check the mail. That's when I saw it. A plain manila envelope in our mailbox. No return address. Just my name written in careful handwriting across the front. Sarah Mitchell. My stomach dropped, even though I had no idea why. It was just an envelope, but something about it felt wrong, heavy, important. I brought it inside and stood at the kitchen counter, staring at it for what felt like forever, but was probably only 30 seconds. My hands were shaking. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that it was probably nothing, maybe something from the landlord, maybe junk mail, maybe a card. But I knew. Somewhere deep in my spirit, I knew. I opened it. Inside was a small silver flash drive. That's it. No note, no explanation, nothing else. Just this tiny piece of metal and plastic that couldn't have weighed more than half an ounce. I should have thrown it away. I should have been cautious. What if it was a virus? What if it was some kind of scam? But instead, I walked to my laptop, sat down at the kitchen table, and plugged it in. There was one video file, 4 minutes and 37 seconds long, dated 2 weeks earlier. The thumbnail showed our living room, the new couch we'd just bought, the coffee table, the lamp in the corner. I clicked play, and that's when my entire world shattered. The footage was clear, too clear. It showed our living room during the day. I could see sunlight streaming through the windows. And there, sitting on our couch, the couch I'd spent an hour picking out, the couch where we read bedtime stories to our daughters, was my husband. He was on his phone. Video call. Smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. I turned up the volume. "I miss you too, baby," he said. His voice was soft, intimate, tender. "I wish you were here right now." A woman's voice responded, laughing. "Soon. Just a few more days." "I can't wait," Tom said. And then he said the words that made my hands go completely numb. "I love you too, Rachel." "I love you too. I love you too. I love you too." I watched those 4 minutes and 37 seconds 3 times in a row. The first time, I thought maybe I'd misheard. The second time, I thought maybe there was some explanation. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I was misunderstanding context. Maybe I was losing my mind. The third time, I knew. My husband was having an affair. In our home, while I was at the hospital, saving other people's lives. My knees gave out. I didn't even realize I was on the floor until I felt the cold tile against my palms. The laptop was still playing. I'd set it to loop, and I could hear his voice saying those words over and over. I thought I would cry. I thought I would scream. I thought I would throw up. Instead, I just sat there, frozen, while my entire life rearranged itself around this new truth. The girls would be home from school in 6 hours. Tom would be home from work in 8. I had to decide what to do before then, but I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I could only feel this crushing weight in my chest, like someone had reached into my ribcage and squeezed. All I could think about was Emma and Lily, my babies, our babies. What would this do to them? How do you tell your daughters that Daddy is a liar? How do you protect them from the explosion that was about to rip our family apart? That's when the mama bear in me woke up. Not with rage, not yet, but with cold, calculated clarity. I needed more information. I needed to know who sent this. I needed to know how bad it really was. Because if I was going to blow up my marriage, if I was going to upend my daughter's entire world, I needed to be absolutely certain. I picked up the envelope again, looked inside. There was something I'd missed before. A small piece of paper folded at the bottom. I unfolded it. 10 digits, a phone number, nothing else. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone, but I dialed. It rang twice. Then a woman's voice, elderly and nervous. "Hello?" "Who is this?" I whispered. "Who sent me this video?" There was a long pause. Then, "Oh, sweetie, this is Margaret. I used to live in your apartment. I'm so sorry you had to see that. But I couldn't let you not know." Margaret, the previous owner. The sweet, scattered woman who'd apologized about forgetting things. "What are you talking about?" I asked, even though part of me already understood. Her voice cracked. "Honey, I forgot to deactivate the security camera I had hidden in the living room. I installed it after a break-in scare a year ago. It still uploads to my tablet. And 2 weeks after you moved in, I saw your husband, and I kept watching because I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was innocent. But then I saw more, and I have daughters too, and I couldn't let you live a lie." A complete stranger. A woman I'd met once for 20 minutes. She cared more about my dignity, my truth, my life than my own husband did. I started crying then. Not pretty crying. Ugly, gulping sobs that made my whole body shake. "Thank you," I managed to say. "Thank you for telling me." Margaret's voice was gentle. "Sarah, honey, there's more footage. A lot more. How much do you want to see?" I looked at the flash drive sitting on my kitchen table. This tiny silver object that had just destroyed my marriage. This piece of evidence that proved I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't imagining things. I thought about my daughters, about the life I'd built, about the man I'd trusted with everything, and I thought about how, for months, I'd felt this knot in my stomach every time Tom came home late, every time he smiled at his phone, every time he told me I was being paranoid, being jealous, being exhausting. I'd ignored my intuition because I didn't have proof. I'd gaslit myself because he was so convincing. But now I had proof. Now I had truth. Now I had power. I want to see everything, I told Margaret. And that's when I learned that what I'd seen on that 4-minute video, that was just the beginning. Because whoever was on the other end of those calls with my husband, she wasn't just some random woman. She had a name I recognized. She had a face I'd met before. And my husband hadn't just been talking to her for 2 weeks. He'd been planning this for months. Right under my nose, while I worked night shifts to help pay our bills, while I took care of our daughters, while I trusted him with my whole heart. But here's what I didn't know yet, what I was about to discover over the next few weeks that would change everything. Someone had been watching my husband for much longer than 2 weeks. Margaret had seen things that would make that first video look like nothing. And the woman on the other end of those calls, the one he called baby, the one he said I love you to, I already knew her. I'd smiled at her, shaken her hand, welcomed her into my life, and she knew exactly who I was the entire time. I know what you're thinking right now. You're wondering how I didn't see it, how I didn't know, how I could have been so blind to what was happening in my own home, with my own husband. Trust me, I've asked myself that same question 1,000 times. So let me take you back to where this really started. 3 months before that envelope appeared in my mailbox. Back to when I actually thought we were building something good. It was early June. Tom came home from work one Thursday evening with this huge smile on his face, the kind I hadn't seen in years. He picked up Emma and spun her around, kissed Lily on the forehead, and then looked at me with this light in his eyes. "I got the promotion," he said. I screamed, actually screamed with joy. We'd been waiting for this for 2 years. More money, better benefits, actual job security. It felt like the universe was finally rewarding us for hanging in there through the hard times. "There's just one thing," he said, and my stomach did that little flip it does when you know a but is coming. "It's at the regional office. We'd need to relocate." I looked around our tiny 2-bedroom apartment. Emma and Lily shared a room the size of a closet. We were bursting at the seams. And honestly, a fresh start sounded perfect. "Where?" I asked. He named the city, only 40 minutes away, still close to my hospital. I could transfer to their ER. The girls could start at new schools. Clean slate. "Let's do it," I said. And I meant it. I really, truly meant it. Looking back now, I can see that's when something shifted in him. When he got permission to move us away from our support system, away from my parents who lived 10 minutes down the road, away from the neighborhood where everyone knew us. But I didn't see it then. I just saw hope. We spent the next month apartment hunting. Tom was in charge of most of it because I was pulling double shifts, trying to save up for the deposit, the moving costs, all of it. He'd send me listings, I'd approve them, and he'd go see them on his lunch breaks. Then he found this place. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, big living room with tons of natural light. The rent was somehow $200 less than places half the size. "Why so cheap?" I asked when he video called me from the walkthrough. "Previous owner needs to move fast," he said, panning the camera around. Elderly woman going to assisted living. She's motivated. I watched through the screen as he walked through. It was perfect, truly perfect. I felt this warmth in my chest, this feeling that maybe everything really was going to be okay. Let's take it, I told him. He grinned. Already put down the deposit. That was Tom, always one step ahead, always taking care of things. Or so I thought. We met Margaret, the previous owner, exactly once. It was moving day, late July. She was there to hand over the keys and pick up the last of her things. She was maybe 70, with kind eyes and hands that shook slightly when she gave me the keychain. Such a lovely family, she kept saying, watching Emma and Lily run through the empty rooms, their voices echoing. Such beautiful girls. Thank you for leaving the furniture, I said. She'd left the couch, the coffee table, even some lamps. You really didn't have to. She waved her hand dismissively. Where I'm going, I don't need much. And you have babies to care for. Consider it a blessing from one mother to another. She seemed scattered, though. Kept going back through rooms, muttering about forgetting things. She apologized 3 times for the mess, even though the place was spotless. I'm so sorry, she said again. My memory isn't what it was. I keep thinking I've forgotten something important, but I can't remember what. Tom walked her to her car while I unpacked boxes in the kitchen. Through the window, I saw him helping her load a bag into her trunk. Saw them talking for a few minutes. He came back inside looking thoughtful. She okay? I asked. Yeah, he said. Just sad about leaving, I think. Lot of memories in this place. I felt a pang of empathy for her. Leaving a home, starting over, all alone. I made a mental note to check in on her once we were settled. But then, life happened. I started my new position at the hospital. Night shifts, 3 to 4 times a week. 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. The pay was better, and someone had to take the overnight differentials to make our budget work. Tom's promotion was great, but the cost of living in the new city was higher than we'd expected. So I became a night owl, a vampire. I'd kiss the girls goodnight, drive to the hospital, spend 12 hours in organized chaos, then come home at dawn to sleep while everyone else lived their lives. Tom became the morning parent. He got the girls ready for school, made their lunches, did drop-off. He'd work from 9 to 5, pick them up, make dinner, do bedtime. I'd wake up around 6 p.m., have a few hours with everyone, then leave again. We were ships passing in the night, literally. It's just for a little while, I kept telling myself. Just until we get ahead. But here's what I didn't realize. Here's the blind spot that nearly destroyed everything. When you're exhausted, and I mean the kind of bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that comes from back-to-back night shifts in an ER, you stop noticing things, little things. The way your husband's smile doesn't quite reach his eyes anymore. The way he angles his phone away from you. The way he's suddenly very interested in going to the gym at odd hours. You tell yourself the distance you feel is just the schedule, just the stress of a new city, new jobs, new schools for the kids. Normal growing pains. You ignore the knot in your stomach because you're too tired to examine it. And when you do ask a question, who are you texting? And he snaps at you. Can I have some privacy? You back down because you don't have the energy to fight. That's how they get away with it. The cheaters, the liars. They wait until you're vulnerable, until you're stretched so thin that you stop trusting yourself. I remember one morning in particular. It was mid-August, about 3 weeks after we'd moved in. I came home from a shift where we'd lost a little boy, 7 years old, car accident. I was wrecked, crying in my car in the driveway before I could go inside. When I finally walked in, Tom was making pancakes with the girls. They were laughing, flour everywhere, music playing, this perfect, domestic scene. He looked at me, and his face fell. "Rough night?" I nodded, couldn't speak. "Go sleep," he said gently. "I've got them." I wanted to collapse into his arms. I wanted him to hold me and tell me it would be okay. But he'd already turned back to the stove, and the moment passed. I went to our bedroom, closed the blackout curtains, and sobbed into my pillow. I felt so alone, so completely alone in a home with 4 other people. Something in his tone didn't sit right with me that day. The gentleness felt performative, like he was acting the part of concerned husband. But I was too destroyed by what I'd seen at work to process it. I shoved the feeling down and went to sleep. That's what I did a lot in those weeks. Shoved feelings down, ignored my intuition, convinced myself I was being paranoid, or hormonal, or just exhausted. The apartment was supposed to be our fresh start, our answer to all the cramped, stressful years before. I'd wake up in the afternoons and walk through it in the golden light thinking, we made it. We're building something good here. I'd see Tom's coffee mug in the sink from the morning, the girls' backpacks by the door, family photos on the wall that we'd finally had time to hang. Normal, happy, safe. Except it wasn't. Because while I was sleeping off my night shifts, while I was saving lives at the hospital, while I was trusting my husband to hold down the fort at home, he was sitting on the couch I'd picked out, in the living room flooded with the natural light I loved, and he was talking to another woman. Telling her he loved her, planning a life that didn't include me. And the only reason I found out, the only reason I wasn't blindsided months or years down the road when he finally left, was because of something Margaret forgot to do. Something she apologized for 3 times on moving day. Something she couldn't quite remember, but knew was important. She forgot to turn off the security camera she'd hidden in the living room, the one she'd installed after a break-in scare, the one that uploaded everything to the cloud, to her tablet at the assisted living facility. And when she saw my husband on that camera 2 weeks after we moved in, saw him on a video call with another woman, saw him smiling that smile I hadn't seen in years, she didn't look away. She kept watching, gathering footage, building evidence, and then she sent it to me. What I didn't realize yet, standing in that perfect apartment with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, thinking we'd finally made it, what I couldn't have known, was that Margaret hadn't just forgotten one thing. She'd left behind one thing on purpose. One thing that would save my life and my daughter's future. The truth. And I was about to learn that once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Once that door opens, you can't close it again. You can only decide what to do next. But we'll get to that. Because first, I need to tell you about the phone call with Margaret. The one where she offered to show me everything, and how I made the choice that changed absolutely everything. So there I was, sitting on my kitchen floor with a laptop playing my husband's Betrayal on loop, holding a phone number from a woman I'd met exactly once. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I had to try 3 times before I got all 10 digits right. It rang once, twice. Then, "Hello?" An elderly woman's voice. Nervous, almost like she'd been waiting for the call but dreading it at the same time. "Is this Margaret?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. "Yes, sweetie. Is this Sarah?" The fact that she knew, the fact that she'd been expecting me, made something crack open in my chest. I started crying. Not quiet tears, but these big, gulping sobs that came from somewhere deep. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately. "Oh, honey, I'm so so sorry you had to see that, but I couldn't let you not know. What? I couldn't get the words out. What is this? How did you? Let me explain, Margaret said gently. Please, let me explain everything. I pressed the phone to my ear and closed my eyes. The apartment was so quiet. Emma and Lily wouldn't be home for 5 more hours. Tom wouldn't be home for 7. I had time. Time to hear this. Time to decide what to do with it. 3 years ago, Margaret began, someone broke into my apartment. Well, not exactly broke in. I'd left the patio door unlocked by mistake. They didn't take much, just some jewelry and cash. But the feeling of violation, I couldn't shake it. I couldn't sleep. I understood that feeling, the violation. I was living it right now. So I had a security camera installed, she continued. Nothing fancy, just a small one hidden in the bookshelf in the living room. It uploads everything to the cloud, to an app on my tablet. It gave me peace of mind, you know? I could check in, make sure everything was okay, even when I wasn't home. Okay, I said, trying to follow through the fog in my brain. When I moved out, when I had to move so quickly to the assisted living facility, I was so scattered. My daughter was rushing me. The movers were there. I had 70 years of life to pack up in 2 weeks. And I forgot. I forgot to deactivate the camera, forgot to remove it, forgot to delete the app from my tablet. My heart was pounding. So you could still see everything, she said quietly. I could still see everything happening in my old living room. In your living room now. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Could almost feel her gathering courage. I didn't watch at first, she said. I meant to delete the app. I really did. But about 2 weeks after you moved in, I got a motion notification on my tablet. It was the middle of the day, and I was bored, so I clicked it. Just curious, you know? Wanting to see what the space looked like with your furniture, your family. And you saw Tom, I finished. I saw your husband, she confirmed. On his phone, video call. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's work, maybe it's innocent. But then I heard what he was saying. The way he was looking at whoever was on that screen. And I knew. I've been married 46 years, honey. I know what that looks like. I felt sick. A stranger saw my husband's betrayal before I did. A stranger knew my marriage was a lie while I was working night shifts, thinking everything was fine. I should have stopped watching, Margaret said, and her voice cracked. I should have deleted it right then, minded my own business. But I have daughters, Sarah. 3 daughters. And I kept thinking, what if this was one of them? What if someone knew and didn't tell them? So you kept watching, I said. I kept watching. I documented everything. Dates, times. I took screen recordings. I told myself I'd know when it was time to tell you. When I had enough evidence that you couldn't be gaslit, couldn't be told you were imagining things. A complete stranger cared more about my dignity than my own husband, more than the man who'd vowed to love and honor me. A woman I'd met once for 20 minutes cared enough to carry this burden, to watch my life fall apart on a screen, to make the impossibly hard choice to reach out. Why now? I asked. Why send it this week? Margaret was quiet for a moment. Because last week, I heard him tell her he was making plans, real plans. He said, I'm going to tell Sarah soon. I just need to figure out the right time. And I realized he was never going to tell you at the right time. There is no right time for a bomb like that. He was just going to keep stringing you along until he had everything lined up the way he wanted. My breath caught. He was planning to leave, actually planning it. I couldn't let him control that narrative, Margaret said firmly. I couldn't let him be the one to decide when and how you found out. You deserve the truth. You deserve the power of knowing first. I was crying again, but different this time. Not the desperate, shocked tears from before. These were tears of gratitude mixed with absolute heartbreak. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for caring enough to tell me. Oh, sweetie. Her voice was so motherly, so kind. You don't have to thank me. You're not alone in this. You hear me? You are not alone. And that's when it hit me. I'd felt so isolated in my exhaustion, so disconnected in my marriage. But this woman, this near stranger, had seen me, had protected me, had given me the one thing I needed most: proof. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being paranoid or jealous or exhausting. I was being betrayed. And now I had evidence. Margaret, I said, my voice steadier now. You said there's more footage, more than what you sent me. Yes, she said carefully. 6 weeks worth, multiple calls, multiple interactions. I thought about that flash drive sitting on my kitchen table, that small silver object that had already destroyed my world. Did I really want to see more? Did I need to see more? Or was what I'd already seen enough? I want to pause here for a second and ask you something, because this is the moment where I had to make a choice. And honestly, I still don't know if I made the right one. Would you want to see everything? Every call? Every lie? Every intimate moment? Or would you want to see just enough to know the truth and then stop? Protect yourself from the details that would live in your head forever. Tell me in the comments, because I think about this all the time. I think about what it costs to know everything and what it costs not to. I sat there on my kitchen floor, phone pressed to my ear, and I thought about my daughters. About Emma, who was 8 and still believed her daddy hung the moon. About Lily, who was 6 and crawled into our bed every morning to snuggle between us. I thought about the life I'd built on what I thought was a foundation of trust. And I thought about the version of me who would walk through the door in 7 hours when Tom came home. The version who would have to look at him and pretend I didn't know. Pretend I hadn't seen. Pretend everything was fine. Could I do that if I saw everything? Or would it break me completely? But then I thought about something else. Something that made my spine straighten and my jaw set. If I was going to leave, and some part of me already knew I was going to leave, I needed ammunition. I needed documentation. I needed to protect myself and my girls from whatever was coming next. I needed to be smart, strategic, strong. I want to see everything, I told Margaret. There was a pause. Then, are you sure, honey? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm sure. And I was. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. For the first time since I'd opened that envelope, I felt clear. How do I get it? I can send you everything, Margaret said. Same way I sent the first video, flash drives, mailed to you. But Sarah, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll protect yourself. Document everything. Keep it somewhere safe, and don't confront him until you're ready. Until you have a plan. It was like she could see into my future, like she knew exactly what I needed to hear. "I promise," I said. "Good girl," she said softly. "I'll get everything together and mail it tomorrow. You should have it by Friday." Friday. 3 days away. 3 days to act normal. 3 days to look my husband in the face and pretend. "Margaret," I said, "why did you care so much? You don't even know me." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. 30 years ago, my husband had an affair. Someone knew. A neighbor saw him with her. But nobody told me. For 6 months, I was the only one who didn't know. I'd go to church, to the grocery store, to parent-teacher conferences, and people would look at me with pity. With knowledge I didn't have. My heart broke for her. When I finally found out, the humiliation was worse than the betrayal. Everyone knew but me. I was a joke, a fool. She paused. "We worked through it. We're still married." But I swore to myself that if I ever had the chance to spare another woman that humiliation, to give her the power of knowing first, I would take it, no matter what. "I'm so sorry that happened to you," I said. "Don't be sorry for me, honey. I survived it, got stronger from it, and now I'm using that strength to help you. That's how this works. We women, we hold each other up." I thanked her through fresh tears. Then I threw up in the kitchen sink. The adrenaline, the shock, the grief, it all hit at once, and my body just purged. I dry heaved until there was nothing left, until I was empty. But here's the strange thing. After I was done, after I'd rinsed my mouth and washed my face and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not happiness. Not peace. But relief. Because I wasn't crazy. I wasn't making it up. My intuition, that knot in my stomach, that feeling that something was off, had been right all along. And now I had proof. I picked up the flash drive from the kitchen table, held it in my palm. This tiny thing that weighed nothing but held everything. This was my truth, my evidence, my power. I thought about Tom coming home in a few hours, kissing me hello, asking about my night, lying to my face while I made him dinner. And I thought about Margaret's words. Don't confront him until you're ready, until you have a plan. I could do this. I could be smart. I could be strategic. I could save my daughters from a messy, ugly explosion by doing this right. But first, I needed to see everything. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Margaret's next package would arrive Friday. 2 more days. And then I'd know the full truth. But there was one thing Margaret said in our phone call that I kept coming back to. One sentence that made my blood run cold. She said Tom told her that he was making plans, that he'd tell me soon, which meant this wasn't just an affair. This was an exit strategy. He wasn't planning to end it. He was planning to end us. And the woman on the other end of those calls, the one he called baby, the one he said, "I love you" to, she was part of that plan. Margaret's voice got quiet at the end of our call. She said, "Sarah, honey, there's more footage, hours of it. And some of it is worse than what you've already seen. Are you absolutely sure you're ready?" I thought I was, but I had no idea what worse meant. I had no idea who Rachel really was. And I had no idea that when I finally saw the rest of that footage, it wouldn't just break my heart. It would shatter everything I thought I knew about my husband, my marriage, and the life I'd been living. After I got off the phone with Margaret, I had 5 hours before the girls came home from school. 5 hours before I had to put on the mask and pretend everything was normal. I couldn't just sit there. I couldn't keep watching that video. So I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed. I cleaned. I scrubbed the kitchen counters, wiped down baseboards, organized the pantry. Anything to keep my hands busy while my mind raced. But the whole time, all I could think about was one question. How did I miss this? Because here's the thing. Affairs don't just happen overnight. There are always signs, always breadcrumbs. The person being cheated on is usually the last to know, but not because the signs aren't there. It's because we convince ourselves not to see them. So while I waited for Margaret's next package to arrive, while I waited for the full truth to reveal itself, I forced myself to look back. To see all the red flags I'd ignored, minimized, or explained away. And there were so many. It started about 6 months ago. Maybe longer. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when things shifted. But 6 months ago is when I first felt it. That knot in my stomach that something wasn't right. Tom started going to the gym, which sounds innocent, right? People go to the gym. But he'd never been a gym person. In 12 years of marriage, he'd maybe gone to a gym 5 times total. Suddenly, he was going 4 times a week, getting up early before work. Coming home sweaty and energized. "I'm just trying to take care of myself," he said when I asked about it. "Getting older, you know? Gotta stay healthy." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Taking care of your health is good. But then came the new cologne, the new clothes, the haircut that was just a little more styled than usual. "You look nice," I said one morning, and I meant it. He did look nice, better than he had in years. He smiled, kissed my cheek. "Thanks, babe." But something in that smile didn't reach his eyes. Something felt performative, like he was playing the role of attentive husband, but his mind was somewhere else. I shoved that feeling down, told myself I was being paranoid. Then there was his phone. It started small. He'd always been casual with his phone before. Leave it on the counter while he showered. Let it sit face up on the coffee table. Charge it on his nightstand. Normal stuff. But gradually, that changed. The phone was always face down, always in his pocket, always password protected. One night, about 4 months ago, we were watching TV and his phone buzzed on the coffee table. I reached for it without thinking. Just a reflex, like I was going to hand it to him. He snatched it out of my hand so fast I actually flinched. "Jesus, Tom, I was just—" "Can I have some privacy?" His voice was sharp, defensive. "Privacy?" I stared at him. "We're married. I wasn't reading your messages. I was just handing you your phone." "Well, maybe I don't want you going through my stuff." My stuff. Like we didn't share a life. Like we didn't share everything. "I wasn't going through anything," I said quietly. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, from something else, from the sudden, visceral understanding that I was being shut out. He softened then, realized he'd overreacted. "I'm sorry. I'm just stressed about work. I didn't mean to snap." And I accepted that, because I wanted to believe him, because I was tired and didn't have the energy to fight about a password. But my spirit was unsettled. That's the only way I can describe it. Something in me knew. The working late started around the same time, which was convenient because those were the nights I worked. He knew my schedule down to the hour, when I left for my shifts, when I'd be home, when I'd be sleeping. "I've got to stay late tonight," he'd text. "Don't wait up." I'd come home at 8 in the morning, exhausted, and he'd be there making coffee, smiling, asking about my shift. "How was your late night?" I'd ask. "Brutal. So much paperwork. I'm getting too old for this." And I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? But now, knowing what I know, I can see it all so clearly. Those weren't late nights at work. Those were late nights with her. While I was at the hospital saving lives, he was building a whole separate life with someone else. The distance in our marriage became harder to ignore. He stopped initiating intimacy, and when I did, he was distant. Physically there, but mentally somewhere else. "You okay?" I'd ask afterward, lying next to him in the dark. "Yeah, just tired." Always tired, always stressed, always some reason why he couldn't fully show up. We stopped having real conversations, stopped talking about anything deeper than logistics: who's picking up the girls, what's for dinner. "Did you pay the electric bill?" I told myself it was the move, the new jobs, the adjustment period, normal marriage stuff. But there was this moment, about 3 months ago, that should have been my wake-up call. We were at a family dinner, his mom's birthday. His whole family was there. And this woman from his office showed up. Rachel. "She's new to the area," Tom explained. "Doesn't know anyone. I thought it would be nice to include her." She was younger than me, maybe late 20s, pretty, cheerful. She brought flowers for his mom and a bottle of wine. Everyone loved her immediately. I watched Tom throughout the dinner, watched how he lit up when she talked, how he laughed at her jokes, how he leaned in when she spoke, giving her his full attention in a way he hadn't given me in months. And I felt it, that cold, sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. But when I mentioned it on the drive home, casual, testing the waters, he shut me down immediately. "Are you seriously jealous right now? Of a coworker?" "I'm not jealous. I just thought it was weird that you invited her to your mom's birthday." "It's called being a decent human, Sarah. She's new. She's alone. God forbid I show some kindness." And just like that, I was the bad guy. I was the one being unreasonable, insecure, cruel. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own instincts, makes you feel crazy for noticing what's right in front of you. So I apologized. I actually apologized for noticing that my husband was paying more attention to another woman than to me. How did I get there? How did I become the kind of woman who apologizes for having a gut feeling? I'll tell you how. Exhaustion, isolation, and 1,000 tiny moments where he made me question my own reality. You're being paranoid. You're too tired to think straight. Why don't you trust me? Over and over until I stopped trusting myself. But the worst part, the part that still makes me feel sick, is that I internalized it. I started believing I was the problem. I was too tired, too busy, too focused on work and the kids. Not pretty enough, not fun enough, not present enough. Maybe if I tried harder, he'd come back to me. So I did try. I bought new lingerie, made his favorite dinners on my nights off, suggested date nights, even though I was exhausted. And you know what he did? He found excuses. Too tired, too stressed. Maybe next week. Next week never came. I thought I was losing him because of something I was doing wrong. I didn't realize I'd already lost him, that he'd chosen to leave long before I ever noticed. Looking back now, with the clarity that only betrayal can bring, I can see the pattern so clearly. He was creating distance, building a separate life, laying groundwork for an exit, and he was doing it so gradually, so carefully, that I didn't see it happening. That's the thing about emotional affairs, and affairs in general. They're not usually dramatic, explosive moments. They're 1,000 tiny cuts, 1,000 small betrayals that add up to one big lie. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already bleeding out. I sat on my bedroom floor that afternoon while the girls were still at school, and I made a list. An actual list of every red flag I'd missed. The gym, the cologne, the phone, the working late, the distance. The defensiveness. The way he said Rachel's name. Casual. Too casual. Like he was trying not to give anything away. The way he looked at me lately, like I was an obligation instead of a partner. The way he'd stopped asking about my day, my dreams, my fears. The way he'd stopped seeing me at all. 23 red flags. I counted them. 23 times my intuition tried to tell me something was wrong, and I ignored it. 23 times I chose to believe his explanations instead of my own gut. Why? Why did I do that? Because I was scared. Scared of what it would mean if I was right. Scared of blowing up my family. Scared of being a single mom with 2 little girls and a mountain of debt. Scared of the truth. But you know what's scarier than the truth? Living a lie. Giving years of your life to someone who's already moved on. Letting your daughters see a fake marriage and think that's what love looks like. I looked at that list of red flags and I felt shame. Deep, gut-wrenching shame. How could I have been so blind? But then I thought about Margaret, about how she'd watched her husband's affair unfold too, about how she'd survived it, gotten stronger, and now she was using that strength to help me. Maybe I wasn't blind. Maybe I was just human. Maybe we all miss things when we're exhausted, when we're trusting, when we love someone so much we can't imagine they'd hurt us. Maybe the shame didn't belong to me at all. Maybe it belonged to him. I folded up that list and put it in my pocket, right next to the flash drive. More evidence, more truth. In 2 days, Margaret's package would arrive, and I'd see the rest of the footage. I'd know exactly what I was dealing with, but even without seeing it, I already knew one thing for certain. This marriage was over. Not because of the affair, not because of Rachel, not even because of the lies, but because of how he made me feel. Small, paranoid, exhausting. Like my intuition was something to be ashamed of instead of honored. I deserved better than that. My daughters deserved better than that. And I was going to make sure we got it. But first, I had to know everything, every detail, every lie. Because when I finally confronted him, when I finally walked away, I needed to be unshakable. I needed to know exactly who I was leaving behind. The girls came home at 3:30, full of stories about school. I made them snacks, helped with homework, played Barbies on the living room floor, the same floor where Tom had told another woman he loved her. Tom came home at 6, kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day. "Fine," I said. "Quiet. How was work?" "Good. Busy." Such a simple lie, so casually delivered. I smiled at him, set the table, acted normal, and the whole time, I felt that flash drive in my pocket, heavy with truth. 2 more days until the next package arrived. 2 more days until I saw the rest. But here's what I didn't know yet, what Margaret's footage was about to reveal. The worst red flag wasn't what Tom did. It wasn't the gym or the phone or even the affair itself. It was what he said about me to Rachel. The things he called me. The way he described our marriage, our life. our daughters. The way he talked about me when he thought no one was listening. And when I finally heard it, when I saw his face on that screen, laughing as he tore me apart to impress another woman, that's when something inside me didn't just break. It turned to steel. Friday came. The day Margaret's package was supposed to arrive. I'd made it through 2 days of pretending. 2 days of kissing Tom goodbye in the morning, helping the girls with homework, making dinner, playing house. 2 days of screaming on the inside while smiling on the outside. I watched the mail like a hawk. Every time I heard a truck outside, my heart would jump into my throat. The girls were at school. Tom was at work. I was supposed to be sleeping. I'd worked the night before, but sleep was impossible. At 2:47 p.m., the mail carrier knocked. I signed for the package with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. It was a padded envelope, bigger than the first one, heavier. Inside were 3 flash drives, each one labeled in Margaret's careful handwriting. Week 1, 2, week 3 to 4, week 5, 6. 6 weeks of footage, 6 weeks of my husband's double life, captured in high definition. There was also a note, handwritten on floral stationery. Sarah, I've organized these chronologically. Take breaks. Don't watch it all at once. Document what you see. Dates, times, what was said. You'll need this if things get legal. And please, call me if you need to talk. You're not alone. Margaret. I sat at the kitchen table with all 4 flash drives laid out in front of me. The original one that had started everything, and now these 3. They looked so innocent. Just little pieces of metal and plastic. You could hold all 4 in one hand, but together, they held the complete destruction of my marriage. I made coffee, strong black coffee that I didn't really want, but needed something to do with my hands. Then I opened my laptop, plugged in the first drive, week 1, 2, and hit play. Margaret had organized it into clips, 23 total across all the footage. 23 separate phone calls or video chats between Tom and Rachel. I told myself I'd watch one, just one, to see if it was really as bad as I feared. I watched all 23. It took me 3 nights. I'd wait until Tom was asleep, really asleep, snoring. Then I'd take my laptop into the bathroom, lock the door, sit on the floor, and watch. And with every video, I died a little more inside. The first few were almost tame. Flirty conversations, him complaining about work, her sympathizing, little inside jokes. The kind of intimacy that should have been reserved for me. I miss you, he'd say. I miss you too, she'd reply. 3 more days until I see you. I'd sit there on the bathroom floor, watching my husband's face light up for another woman, and feel my chest constrict, like someone was squeezing my heart with both hands. But it got worse. By week 3, they weren't just flirting. They were planning, talking about the future, their future. Once things are settled, Tom said in one video, we can finally be together, really together. Rachel's face on the screen. I remembered her from his mom's birthday dinner, the cheerful woman with the wine and flowers. Smiled. I can't wait. I hate sneaking around. I know, baby, me too, but we have to be smart about this. Smart? He wanted to be smart about destroying his family. I paused the video, ran to the toilet, and threw up. Quiet, so I wouldn't wake anyone. Then I rinsed my mouth, sat back down, and kept watching, because I needed to know. I needed to see all of it. The worst ones were the videos where he talked about me. In week 4, Rachel asked, Does she suspect anything? Tom laughed. Actually laughed. Sarah? No, she's too tired to notice anything. She works nights, sleeps all day. We barely see each other. Do you feel bad? Rachel asked. He paused. I watched his face, looking for remorse, for guilt, for anything human. Sometimes, he said. But honestly, we've been more like roommates than a couple for years. This thing with you, it's the first time I've felt alive in forever. Roommates. He called us roommates. 12 years of marriage, 2 children, a life built together, and we were roommates to him. Every video felt like a knife, not just in my heart, in my dignity, in my sense of self. I started watching like it was happening to someone else. Disassociating, protecting myself by pretending this wasn't my husband, my life, my reality. But then, in week 5, he said something that snapped me back into my body so hard I gasped. Rachel asked about the girls, about Emma and Lily. How will they handle it when you tell Sarah? She asked. Tom was quiet for a moment. Then, honestly, I don't think they'll even notice that much. Kids are resilient. They'll adjust. They'll adjust. Like they were furniture. Like their hearts wouldn't break. Like watching their family implode wouldn't shape the rest of their lives. My daughters. My babies. The 2 people I'd laid down my life for. Worked myself to exhaustion for. Protected with every breath. And he thought they wouldn't even notice. That's when something in me turned to steel. I wasn't watching through tears anymore. I was watching with cold, calculated focus. I started taking notes, dates, times, key phrases. I made a spreadsheet, organized, methodical, like I was charting patient data at the hospital. Week 1, Sept 3. I love you exchanged. Plans to meet Thursday week 2, Sept 10. Discussion of ending things with Sarah. Week 3, Sept 15. Tom calls marriage dead, says I'm always at work. Week 4, Sept 22. Plans weekend away, tells Rachel he'll make up an excuse. Week 5, Sept 28. Discusses children, says they'll adjust. Week 6, Oct 5. Mentions needing to figure out finances before making a move. 23 conversations. 6 weeks, hundreds of lies, and I documented every single one. There was one video in particular that I must have watched 10 times, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was from week 4. Tom was getting ready for work. I could see him in the mirror in our bedroom. Our bedroom. He was on video chat with Rachel, the phone propped up on the dresser. He was practicing. Actually practicing the lie he was going to tell me that evening. Sarah, honey, I have to stay late tonight, he said to his reflection, testing the tone. Big project. You know how it is. Rachel laughed on the screen. You're such a good liar. Years of practice, he joked. Then he tried another version. Sarah, babe, the boss needs this done by tomorrow. I'm so sorry. He adjusted his collar, checking his appearance, making sure he looked trustworthy. How do I look? He asked Rachel. Like a devoted husband, she teased. She'll never suspect. They both laughed. I sat on the bathroom floor, watching my husband rehearse his betrayal, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Not quite rage, not quite heartbreak. Something colder, sharper, clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a midlife crisis. This was calculated, intentional, cruel. He enjoyed lying to me. He and Rachel laughed about it together. I paused here because I want to ask you something, and I really want to know what you think. What's worse, physical cheating or emotional betrayal? The actual act of being with someone else, or the intimacy of sharing your life, your thoughts, your future plans with them? The lying to your face, or the mocking behind your back? Let me know in the comments below. Because I still don't have an answer. By the third night, I'd seen everything. All 23 videos, all 6 weeks of footage, and I knew several things for certain. 1. This affair had been going on for at least 6 weeks, probably longer. 2. Rachel wasn't just a fling. They were planning a future together. 3. Tom had been systematically creating distance in our marriage to justify his betrayal, both to me and to himself. 4. He was planning to leave. Not someday. Soon. But there was something else. Something Margaret had mentioned in her note. You'll need this if things get legal. Legal meant divorce, custody, money. And that's when it hit me. I had no idea what our financial situation actually looked like. Tom handled the bills. Tom managed the accounts. I made good money as a nurse, but I'd always direct deposited into our joint account and trusted him to handle the rest. What if he was already moving money? What if he was preparing to leave me with nothing? What if the plan wasn't just to leave me emotionally, but to destroy me financially too? Suddenly, the affair felt like only part of the picture. The emotional betrayal was devastating, but the practical implications terrified me. I had 2 daughters to protect, a life to rebuild, and I had no idea if the financial foundation I'd been standing on was real or if Tom had already kicked it out from under me. I needed to know the truth about our money, about what he'd been doing while I worked night shifts, saving lives, trusting him to hold down the fort at home. I closed the laptop, put all 4 flash drives in a small Ziploc bag, hid them in the lining of my winter coat in the back of the closet, somewhere Tom would never look. Then I went to bed, laid down next to my husband, and listened to him snore. He looked peaceful, content, like a man with nothing to hide. And I realized he'd been sleeping peacefully this whole time, while I worked, while I worried, while our marriage died. He felt no guilt, no remorse, no shame. But I was about to make sure he felt something, because the next morning, while he was at work and the girls were at school, I was going to do something I should have done months ago. I was going to look at our bank accounts, our credit cards, every financial record I could find. And I had a terrible feeling, that knot in my stomach that had been right about everything else, that what I was about to discover about our money would be even worse than the affair. Because an exit strategy isn't just about emotions, it's about power, control, making sure you come out on top while the other person is left with nothing. And I needed to know, was he planning to leave us, or was he planning something worse with our money? The next morning, after Tom left for work and the girls went to school, I sat down at our home computer with a cup of coffee I didn't drink and a notepad with a pen I gripped too tightly. My hands were shaking, not from fear this time, from anticipation. I'd spent 3 nights watching my husband dismantle our marriage emotionally. Now it was time to see if he'd been dismantling it financially too. I logged into our joint bank account, the one where both our paychecks got deposited, the one Tom said he was managing so I didn't have to worry about bills while working exhausting night shifts. The balance looked normal, maybe a little lower than I expected, but not alarmingly so. But when I clicked on the transaction history, my stomach dropped. I started scrolling, and scrolling, and scrolling, cash withdrawals, hundreds of dollars at a time. Always on days when I was working or sleeping. September 3rd, 400 cash withdrawal. September 10th, $350 cash withdrawal, September 15th. $500 cash withdrawal, September 22nd. $450 cash withdrawal. I grabbed my notepad and started writing, matching the dates to the videos I'd watched. The pattern was sickeningly clear. Every time he had a call with Rachel, every time they planned to meet. There was a cash withdrawal the day before or the day of. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold, clinical. I kept going back. 4 months of statements, cash withdrawals totaling over $6,000. $6,000. Gone. Taken from the account where I deposited every paycheck from my overnight shifts at the hospital. Money I earned while he was building a life with someone else. But that wasn't even the worst part. I found Venmo transactions, payments to accounts I didn't recognize. Small amounts, $50 here, $75 there. But they added up. Another $2,200 over 4 months. Then I saw the credit card statements. We'd always kept one joint credit card for emergencies and big purchases. I opened the statement for September. $287 at a restaurant I'd never been to, on a Tuesday. A Tuesday when I was working and he'd texted me that he was staying late at the office. $156 at a jewelry store, 2 weeks before his mom's birthday. I'd assumed it was a gift for his mom. It wasn't. $300 at a hotel 40 minutes away, on a Saturday when he'd told me he was helping his brother move. I remembered that Saturday. I'd been home with the girls, doing laundry, making dinner, being a mom, while my husband was in a hotel room with another woman, using our money, our family's money. My vision blurred, not from tears, from rage. I clicked through to see more statements. 3 more months of charges, multiple restaurant bills, $200, $300 each. Another hotel, different location, flowers delivered, never to our address. Wine, expensive bottles, 2 more jewelry purchases, over $2,000 on the credit card, for dates with Rachel. For gifts for Rachel. For building a romance with Rachel while I was at home clipping coupons and skipping lunch to save $12. I actually laughed. A bitter, hollow sound that echoed in the empty apartment. While I was eating vending machine crackers for lunch because we needed to tighten the budget, my husband was buying $300 dinners for his girlfriend. While I was driving my car with the check engine light on because we couldn't afford the repair right now, he was booking hotel rooms. While I was telling our daughters we'd have to wait until next month for new school shoes, he was buying jewelry for another woman. The financial betrayal hit different than the emotional betrayal. It wasn't just my heart he was breaking. It was my security, my daughter's security. The foundation I'd worked myself to exhaustion to build, I kept digging. Because if there was this much I'd found, there had to be more. That's when I saw it. A credit card I didn't recognize. I clicked on the email notification. He'd been getting paperless statements sent to an email address I'd never seen before. A second credit card, one I knew nothing about, one he'd opened without telling me. My chest tightened. I tried logging in with our usual passwords. None of them worked, but I knew Tom, knew how his mind worked. He always used variations of the same passwords, dates that were important to him. I tried our wedding anniversary. No. Emma's birthday. No. Then, with shaking hands, I tried something else. I went back to the videos, found the one where Rachel mentioned her birthday, July 14th. I typed it in various formations. On the 3rd try, I got in. The statement loaded, $4,752's balance. All charges from the past 6 months. All charges I'd never seen, never approved, never knew existed. More hotels, more restaurants, more gifts, but also monthly payments to an apartment complex I didn't recognize. $850 a month. 3 months paid. He was paying for an apartment. Was it Rachel's? Was it somewhere he was planning to move? Was he setting up a whole separate life while living in ours? I sat back in the chair, physically ill. The total was climbing in my head. Cash withdrawals, $6,000. Venmo payments, Plen $200. Known credit card, $2,000. Secret credit card, $4,847. Almost $14,000. In 4 months. $14,000 of our family's money spent on an affair. I thought about the conversations we'd had during that time. The ones where he'd told me we needed to cut back. The ones where he'd frowned at my Amazon purchases. Books for the girls, $23. The ones where he'd suggested I pick up more shifts. "We need to be smart about money right now," he'd said, "just until we get more stable." And I'd believed him. I'd worked extra shifts, sacrificed sleep, pushed my body past its limits, while he spent $300 on a single dinner with Rachel. I grabbed my phone, opened the calculator app, started adding up my extra shifts from the past 4 months. 16 additional overnight shifts. At $450 per shift after differentials, $7,200. I'd earned an extra $7,200 by working myself into the ground. Money that went into our account. Money that he withdrew and spent on another woman. I was literally funding my own betrayal. The rage that hit me then wasn't hot. It was ice cold, crystalline, sharp. I pulled the flash drives out of my coat pocket, held them in one hand, held the printed bank statements in the other. This was evidence. Real, documented, undeniable evidence. Not just of an affair. Of financial abuse. Of theft, really. Because he'd taken money we'd earned together. Money I'd sacrificed for. And used it for his own selfish purposes. I put the flash drives in the front pocket of my scrubs. I had a shift that night. I'd carry them with me. Keep them close. Evidence. Truth. Power. But I needed more. I needed to know if he'd done anything else. Drained savings, opened accounts in my name, moved retirement funds. I spent the next 2 hours going through every financial document I could access. Bank accounts, retirement accounts, investment accounts, even the girls' college savings. Most of it seemed intact. But our joint savings, the emergency fund we'd been building for years, was $12,000 lower than it should have been. "Car repair," he'd said in June. "Had to drain savings. Sorry, babe." There was no car repair, just more money disappearing into his double life. By noon, I had a complete picture. Approximately $26,000 missing or misappropriated over 6 months. One secret credit card with nearly $5,000 in charges. Monthly payments to an unknown apartment. Our savings decimated. Our joint credit maxed out. And me, working night shifts, skipping meals, wearing scrubs with holes in them because I was trying to be responsible. I thought about confronting him right then, calling him at work, screaming at him about every dollar, every lie, every betrayal. But Margaret's voice echoed in my head. "Don't confront him until you're ready, until you have a plan." I needed a plan, a real one. I needed to protect myself financially before he knew I knew. Because if he was planning an exit, and the apartment payments suggested he was, he might try to drain everything else the moment I confronted him. I opened my laptop, searched divorce attorney in our area, found 3 with good reviews, sent emails requesting free consultations. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I opened a separate bank account, in my name only, at a different bank. It felt like the biggest act of betrayal I'd ever committed, opening a secret account. But then I remembered, he'd been doing this for months, and unlike him, I was doing it to protect my children, not to fund an affair. I'd redirect my next paycheck there, start building a safety net he couldn't touch. I'd document everything, save everything, prepare for the legal battle that was coming. Because if he thought he was going to leave me broke and broken while he rode off into the sunset with Rachel, he had another thing coming. I'd spent 12 years taking care of him, taking care of our family, sacrificing my body, my sleep, my health to build a life together. And he'd spent 6 months tearing it all down. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me, thought I was too tired, too trusting, too beaten down to notice. He forgot that I was a nurse, that I spent my days making life or death decisions under pressure, that I was trained to assess, strategize, and act. He forgot that I was a mother, and mothers protect their children at all costs, even from their own fathers. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the text, felt that familiar knot in my stomach. But this time, I knew exactly what working late meant, and I knew exactly how much it was costing. I texted back, "Okay, be safe." Then I screenshot the text and added it to my evidence folder. Because I was building a case now. Not just an emotional case about heartbreak and betrayal, a legal case with dates, times, financial records, video evidence. Everything I'd need when this went to court. Everything I'd need to protect my daughters and secure their future. I looked at the clock. 4 hours until the girls got home. 6 hours until my shift started. I had time for one more thing. I called the number on that apartment lease payment, asked to speak to the leasing office. "Hi," I said, my voice steady. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I believe my husband has been making payments on a unit there. I'm trying to confirm the lease details." There was typing on the other end. "Yes, Mrs. Mitchell. We have a Thomas Mitchell with a lease starting in 2 months. November 1st, 1-bedroom unit." My heart stopped. "November 1st? That's in 3 weeks." "Yes, ma'am. He paid first and last month's rent plus deposit. All set to move in." "Thank you," I whispered. "That's all I needed to know." I hung up. November 1st, 3 weeks away. He was planning to leave in 3 weeks, and he hadn't said a word to me. I thought back to that video, the one where Rachel asked when he'd tell me. "Soon," he'd said. "I just need to figure out the right time." The right time was apparently 3 weeks from now, when he had his apartment ready, when he'd moved enough money around, when everything was perfectly aligned for him to walk away clean. But here's what he didn't know. I'd just figured out his timeline, his plan, his exit strategy, and I had 3 weeks to make my own. 3 weeks to build a case so airtight he couldn't wiggle out of it. 3 weeks to protect my daughters financially and emotionally. 3 weeks to transform from the exhausted, trusting wife into something he never saw coming. A woman who knew the truth. A woman with evidence. A woman who was done being a victim. But first, I needed to hear one more thing. One piece of the puzzle I hadn't quite figured out yet. Because if Tom was moving into a 1-bedroom apartment in 3 weeks, I needed to know, was Rachel moving in with him? And more importantly, what was his plan for telling our daughters their family was ending? I was about to get my answer. Because that night, while I was supposed to be at work, I'd be listening from the shadows. And what I overheard would be the final piece that turned my grief into steel. But the worst red flag wasn't what Tom did. It wasn't the gym or the phone or even the affair itself. It was what he said about me to Rachel. The things he called me, the way he described our marriage, our life, our daughters. The way he talked about me when he thought no one was listening. And when I finally heard it, when I saw his face on that screen, laughing as he tore me apart to impress another woman, that's when something inside me didn't just break. It turned to steel. If you're still with me, I need you to hit subscribe right now. This story continues in part 2, and I promise you, the confrontation, the divorce papers, the moment he realized he'd completely underestimated me, it's all coming. But before you go, drop a comment. Which red flag hit closest to home for you? Your answer might save another woman from walking this path alone. I read every single comment. Thank you for listening to part 1 with me. I'll see you in part 2.